This our hymn of grateful praise. I'm invite Paul up to read our scripture passage. He read during Christmas Eve, and he has a beautiful British accent. And Cindy was with my son sitting next to him, and she said, he doesn't really have a British accent. We are all going to read scriptures in the British accent today. Anyway, and we'll get Paul to read a tough passage to read this morning, but one I think we need to hear.
Just for context, this is just after the Magi have been to visit. From Matthew chapter 2. Now after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene.
Thank you, Paul. I have a confession to make to you today. January is not my month. I have a terrible time getting through January. I think it comes back from my teacher days being in South Dakota. And you get done with Christmas and have this great Christmas, and then January came and it was cold and it was windy and there was snow everywhere. And everybody seemed to be like Alexander, having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad January. And I just think, in a way, I framed that for myself. And let me tell you, if I have a tough time during January, I can't imagine sometimes what other people are going through, because my family always, so far, have had incredible Christmases. I mean, we post, pictures of our family all together. That alone, getting all of our kids there for this moment is just so wonderful. And Emerson this year, she was just flirting with those three uncles like nobody's business. She was having such a good time. But in some ways, it makes me feel just a little bit guilty for having and being blessed that way, because I just know not everybody has Christmases like that. Many people struggle with the Christmases they have. And if they're struggling with their Christmases, I can't imagine what January must be like for them. This passage tells us a little bit about what Mary and Joseph went through after Christmas. What a struggle. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine having to flee a country because of the possibility of our child dying, being killed by that leader. We kind of sit there and say, well, that was way back then, right? Way back, long time ago. That doesn't happen anymore. Well, look around. It happens all the time. This is truly part of our world. And I think of those folks and I think, how do they make it through, right? How can they possibly keep going when they have to flee to another country and have to live in a tent? And I can't imagine what that must feel like, not knowing where they're going to be that next year or the year after that, or whether their child will be safe in the future. As we think of that, I have to tell you, when I was a Christmas moment for me, our family was together. We were having our Christmas meal, eating the ham you guys gave us. Thank you. And just kind of counting our blessings. At the same time, Cindy at one moment said, "You better check your Facebook because one of your good friends has posted something that is really disturbing." And so I took a look a little later at what she posted, and she posted basically almost a suicide note. I thought for sure she was thinking of taking her life. And so I called her, and I tried to reach out to her. Didn't get her at first, but finally, a little later, I did. And she shared what she was going through. She had all these expectations for Christmas, right? And we get those, right? And all these expectations, not one of them came through. And she ended up being all by herself for Christmas. And she said, "I just can't do this anymore." And so I stayed on the phone with her, and we talked, and I made sure she called some other people to talk. And she got through that day. I was wondering how many times Mary and Joseph maybe had that same feeling on the road running. How many times Mary and Joseph wondered what their future was going to hold. And did they have the sense, right? We know that Mary took these things of Christmas and she placed them in her heart and she held them there, right? She was trying to keep that Christmas, right, in her heart. But how many times did she go back to that? Was she able to go back there and remember the Christmas promise in the midst of all that cloud of darkness there? Or were there moments, just like my friend, where she wondered if she could make it and maybe was hoping she couldn't? Those are difficult, difficult times in our lives. I don't know about you, but there are things this January I'm not looking forward to. There are things this January I know I'm going to struggle with. There is an attitude of racism and hatred in this world that I am worried that might get worse, right? There is an attitude towards women that I am worried might get worse. And sometimes if we're like that, if we let that roll, right, it can be dark entering the new year. And we almost get that moment where we kind of want to just give up. Or Billy was just saying, when bad things happen to him, he said, "I just like to pull the carpet up there and roll it under there and sweep it all under the carpet." That's kind of me this year for 2025. I am the ostrich. I kind of want to just put my head in there and just let's get through this thing. I don't know if that's the right attitude. What do we do? What did Mary and Joseph do? What does God want us to do in these times where we're challenged with the darkness of the world and we are the people of light? What are we supposed to do? In Greece, there is an island there that was a terrible thing happened during World War II. The Nazi soldiers came into Greece, and there was a group on this island, didn't have any weapons, so they took their kitchen knives and they went and tried to attack these Nazis with their knives. They didn't get very far, and once Hitler found out about it, he lined up all of their families and their children, and he killed them all. What a terrible place, right? I mean, what a place of incredible darkness. I don't know if you've ever visited historical sites like that, but there is a spiritual darkness about them. They kind of pull you down into this. But this place is different. on that very place where those folks were massacred, they have built a cathedral of peace. They have built a cathedral of peace, and they bring people from all over the world every year to have symposiums about how we can bring this world to a peaceful place. It has become a place of immense hope. One of my favorite writers is Robert Fulghum, and he writes stories all the time, and he writes this story of going to visit that island and going to a peace symposium there. And at that symposium, there was a person who had been in a concentration camp during World War II. And he was speaking, and Robert Fulghum he's kind of a smart aleck sometimes. And so this person got done speaking, and one of the things Robert Fulghum likes to do when a speaker gets done, and they always ask that question, are there any questions? And there's that dead silence. Robert Fulghum often says, what is the meaning of life? He asked that question. And he said, every time I do that, people kind of laugh, and the speaker rarely answers the question. But in this case, this survivor of the Holocaust stopped and said, I'm going to answer that question. And he said, when I was in the concentration camps, I was just a little kid, he said, and there would be SS officers that would fly through our camp with their motorcycles, revving them loud, kind of trying to run us over sometimes, and we were scared to death of those guys. But one day, there was an SS officer that came flying through, and his rear view mirror on the bike hit something, and it broke. And he said, I don't know what it was about me, but I just saw that shiny little mirror, that piece of mirror, and I needed to go get it. And so I braved it and ran out there, and I grabbed it, and I went back to my hiding place. And this little mirror, he said, became kind of the game that kept me going. I noticed that it reflected light. And he said, as a kid, I would look at all the dark places in that Holocaust place. He said, and there was a lot of them. And I'd just make a game of how I could possibly kind of reflect the light into those dark corners of that place. And he said, for some reason, I kept that little piece of mirror, and I began to kind of work it so it became just a little round piece of mirror. And I put it in my pocket, and after I got out of Holocaust and I got out of that place, I totally forgot about it. He said, and I kind of lost my way. I lost my way about what life was all about. I thought when I got out of the concentration camps, everything would be better, but he said, it wasn't. It was a struggle. There was a lot of Januaries in there. But he said, one day, I was going through my stuff, and I found that little piece of mirror, and something clicked in my heart, and it told me, you know what? That's who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be that mirror that takes God's love and reflects it into people's hearts, into the darkness of people's hearts, so they can find light, so they can find hope in their lives. I got a chance to go visit Helen and Sam. Raise your hand over here, you guys. Yesterday, had a great visit. But we were talking in that conversation. Sam works in a seminary, and he's a New Testament scholar and homiletics, right? Both of those two together. And I thought, boy, when he told me that, I said, oh boy, he's been hearing my sermons. By the way, Helen is a computer engineer, so both of them, I don't know anything they do. I don't know anything about the topics. I'm just joking. I do know a little about the New Testament. But we were talking, and he said, I have a gift. I have this knowledge. I am a scholar, but I can't just use that knowledge I have and that information just to kind of benefit me. I have to use that knowledge to shine, to be a witness, so that knowledge can be a witness to the world, right? So they can see the light, but also sometimes see that part of this world's darkness is how they are participating in it. And so sometimes that light needs to be a witness. We need to witness, bear witness to others, especially when they're going down the wrong path. Martin Luther King Jr. Often would confront people who were struggling with racism, who were racist. And he said every time he confronted them, never once did he confront them in hate. He always looked into their eyes with love. And that's the way in which he was able to confront them and be a witness to something better. We are going to be going through dark times. We always are in history. How can we, as Bear Creek, bear witness to a better way, a more excellent way? And all the people said, amen.